Mike, when we started this series, we were looking at states taking baby steps, a 1,200-watt limit here, a small pilot program there. But today, we're going to a state that looked at what everyone else was doing and said, we can go bigger, we can go broader, and we can tackle the hard stuff right now.
Exactly, Lisa. Today, we're going behind the bill in Colorado. And Colorado didn't just pass a plug-in solar law. They built one of the most advanced, comprehensive distributed energy frameworks in the country. They pushed the wattage limit higher. They protected renters. And they tackled something most states are still afraid to touch: meter collars.
We're going to hear from the lawmakers who made it happen. Representative Lesley Smith, who saw this working in Germany and brought the idea home. Senator Cathy Kipp, who saw it as a critical resilience tool against wildfires and outages. And Senator Matt Ball's office, who looked at it as a fundamental issue of affordability for renters and condo owners in Denver.
It's a story about a perfect storm of constituent demand, industry momentum, and political will. But it's also a story about the hard, grinding work of stakeholder negotiation. Because getting utilities, electricians, HOAs, and solar advocates to agree on a single piece of legislation, that is never easy.
Let's dive in. Welcome back to Plug-in Solar Explained. I'm Lisa, your consumer advocate, here to make sure you know exactly what you're buying, what your rights are, and how to protect your home.
And I'm Mike. I handle the policy, the electrical codes, and the technical standards that make all of this possible. This is our Behind the Bill series, where we look at the state laws that are opening up the plug-in solar market across the country.
Today, we are heading to the Rocky Mountains. We're looking at Colorado's HB 26-1007, officially titled Improve Customer Use Distributed Energy Resources. It was signed into law by Governor Jared Polis on May 7th, 2026. And Mike, this bill is a heavyweight.
It really is. We're going to break down what it does, how it passed, and what it means for consumers. We'll look at the 1920-watt limit, the renter protections, the safety requirements, and the meter collar provisions.
Let's start at the beginning. Where did this idea come from in Colorado? Because it didn't start in Denver. It actually started in Germany.
That's right. Representative Lesley Smith was visiting family in the Heidelberg area of Germany. And while she was there, she noticed something that is incredibly common across Europe right now: small solar panels hanging from apartment balconies and mounted in ordinary residential yards.
They're everywhere over there.
Exactly. As she traveled, she kept seeing them. And what struck her was how simple and visible they were. It's a consumer-facing product in a way that most U.S. solar policy just isn't. In the U.S., solar is usually a massive construction project. It involves contractors, permits, scaffolding, and tens of thousands of dollars. In Germany, it's treated more like a household appliance. You buy it, you take it home, you mount it, and you plug it in. It demystifies the entire process of generating electricity.
And it's worth noting that Germany didn't just invent this overnight. They had a massive surge in plug-in solar adoption following the energy crisis sparked by the war in Ukraine. People were desperate to reduce their reliance on the grid and lower their bills, and the government made it incredibly easy to adopt these balcony systems. They stripped away the red tape. So she sees this proven working model in Germany, and then she comes back to Colorado. What happens next?
Well, she called it a perfect storm. Almost immediately after she got back, a constituent emailed her. They had seen the news about Utah passing the nation's first plug-in solar law, and they asked, hey, can Colorado do something similar?
I love that. It's a great reminder that emailing your representative actually works.
It really does. And around that exact same time, the Colorado Solar and Storage Association, COSA, reached out and encouraged her to run a bill. So she has the visual proof from Germany, the legislative proof of concept from Utah, the industry backing from COSA, and direct constituent demand.
And she mentioned it at a town hall, right?
She did. She brought up the idea at a local town hall, and the reaction was immediate. The room actually applauded.
That's when you know you have a winning issue. It wasn't just a wonky energy policy, it was something people actively wanted.
It's a rare thing in politics when a policy idea gets spontaneous applause. Usually, energy policy town halls are filled with debates over rate structures or transmission lines, things that make people's eyes glaze over. But this was different. Senator Cathy Kipp saw the same thing from the Senate side. After Utah passed its bill, Colorado legislators started getting flooded with emails from residents asking why they couldn't have the same right to plug in solar. Kipp said the idea generated unusual excitement because it's so relatable. People can immediately understand it. A small solar panel, a balcony, or a patio, and a more affordable way to produce your own power.
It's tangible. You don't have to explain wholesale market reform or grid interconnection queues. You just say, you can put a solar panel on your balcony and plug it in, and people get it instantly.
So they have the momentum. They draft the bill. What does Colorado's HB 26-1007 actually do?
At a high level, it does 5 major things. First, it defines and creates requirements for portable scale solar generation devices. Second, it prohibits utilities from requiring customer approval before you install or use one of these qualifying devices.
That's huge. You don't have to ask the utility for permission.
Right. Third, it makes unreasonable prohibitions or restrictions unenforceable. This is aimed at HOAs and landlords. They can't just ban them outright, though they can still have reasonable safety and property rules. Fourth, it clarifies that the installation has to comply with fire codes and building codes. And fifth, it says utilities are not liable for any damage caused by the device.
And then there's the meter collar provision, which we will definitely get to. But first, I want to talk about the size limit, because Colorado didn't just copy Utah, they went bigger.
They did. Several other states that have passed these laws use a 1,200-watt framework. That's kind of the baseline that emerged early on. But Colorado's law allows for portable-scale solar generation devices up to 1,920 watts.
That is a massive difference. 1,920 watts is one of the most expansive explicit limits in the United States right now. Why did they go so high?
Senator Kipp described the instinct perfectly. She said Colorado wanted to give people as much as we can within a framework that could still satisfy safety and stakeholder concerns. They didn't want to artificially cap it if the engineering and the safety codes could support a higher number.
Representative Smith said the 1,920-watt limit came out of coalition discussions. They looked at Utah as a model, but they believed they could improve on it. And again, Germany's experience helped here. Seeing that these devices are safe and mainstream in Europe gave them the confidence to push the envelope.
But both Smith and Kipp were very clear. They aren't trying to invent electrical standards. They relied heavily on COSA, technical experts, and electricians to make sure that 1,920-watt limit was safe and workable within existing codes. The law sets the policy signal, but the market still has to deliver compliant, safe products.
Let's talk about who this bill is really for. Because when we interviewed the lawmakers, all 3 offices, Smith, Kipp, and Ball, said the exact same thing. This is an access story.
Exactly. Traditional rooftop solar is fantastic, but it leaves out a huge portion of the population. If you're a renter, you can't put panels on a roof you don't own. If you live in a condo or an HOA, you might face impossible restrictions. If you live in an apartment, you don't even have a roof to use. And if you live in a mobile home park, mounting heavy panels on the structure might not be physically possible.
Not to mention, even if you own a single-family home with a perfect roof, you might not have $20,000 or $30,000 to spend on a full system.
Right. Senator Ball's office brought a really important perspective here. He represents central and eastern Denver, which is a dense urban district. A lot of his constituents live in apartments, condos, and rental housing. For them, plug-in solar isn't just a cool new gadget. It is a fundamental issue of affordability and access. It's the only way they can participate in the clean energy transition.
Representative Smith pointed out that portability is the magic word for renters. You can buy a panel, set it up on your patio, and when your lease is up, you unplug it pack it in your car, and take it to your next apartment. You own the asset. It moves with you.
And Senator Kipp highlighted mobile home residents, too. This gives them a way to generate their own power without altering the structure of their home. It democratizes solar.
The affordability piece is so critical. We checked the data. In Colorado, a traditional rooftop system averages around $15,000 to $20,000 before incentives. And while the average residential electricity rate in Colorado is around 15 to 16 cents per kilowatt hour, which is actually lower than the national average, the bills are still climbing. Xcel Energy has been consistently asking for rate increases. They recently proposed an increase that would add over $6 a month to the average residential bill.
And when you look at the projections, some estimates suggest Colorado electricity rates could outpace inflation by nearly 5 cents per kilowatt hour by 2030. So the pressure on household budgets is real, and it's growing. A plug-in solar kit is a fraction of the cost of a rooftop system. It's a lower-cost entry point for people who want to do something but can't afford the massive upfront investment.
Now, the lawmakers were very careful to manage expectations here. A plug-in system is not going to run your whole house. It's not going to charge your Tesla overnight, but it will offset small loads, your fridge, your router, your phantom loads, and reduce your consumption.
Exactly. It's about chipping away at the edges of your bill. And in a state where rates are climbing, every little bit of bill reduction matters. It gives consumers a sense of control over their energy costs, even if they can't eliminate their bill entirely.
Colorado has a unique geography and climate, and that played a big role in this bill. Specifically, wildfires and high winds.
Yes, Senator Kipp pointed to public safety power shutoffs as a growing concern. When the fire danger is high and the winds are howling, utilities will proactively shut off the power lines to prevent sparks from starting a wildfire.
Which is necessary for safety, but it leaves residents without power, sometimes for days.
Exactly. And if you need to keep your phone charged to get emergency alerts, or keep your computer running for work, or keep insulin refrigerated, those outages are a serious problem. Kipp saw plug-in solar, especially if it's paired with a small portable battery, as a vital resilience tool. It's an affordable way to keep essential items running during an emergency.
But that resilience piece ties directly into the safety piece. Representative Smith was very focused on this. She described major winter outages, and she emphasized that these systems absolutely must not energize the utility lines while line workers are out there trying to fix the grid.
This is the anti-islanding requirement. We talk about it all the time. If the grid goes down, your plug-in solar panel has to shut off immediately. It cannot push power backward into a dead grid, because that could electrocute a line worker.
Smith said anti-islanding and shutdown behavior are not technical footnotes. They are central, non-negotiable safety requirements.
And the law reflects that. The official legislative summary states that installations must comply with fire codes and health and safety building codes. They repeatedly referenced UL certification as the baseline.
They also had to address the wind. Colorado gets incredibly high winds, sometimes up to 100 miles per hour.
Right. So anchoring and mounting are a big deal. You can't just have a panel resting loosely on a 10th floor balcony in Denver. The law prevents HOAs and landlords from banning plug-in solar entirely, but it explicitly allows them to enforce reasonable safety and property rules. They can require you to secure the device properly. They can prevent you from drilling into common walls or damaging the building.
It's a balance. Colorado is saying, yes, consumers have a right to do this, but no, it is not a free-for-all. You have to use certified equipment, and you have to install it safely. We've made this sound like a smooth, inevitable victory, but behind the scenes, this bill required massive amounts of negotiation.
It was a grind. Representative Smith described extensive stakeholder work. They were at the table with Xcel Energy, rural electric cooperatives, municipal utilities, the Electrical Workers Union, IBEW, apartment associations, HOA groups, CASA, and consumer advocates. It was a massive effort to bring everyone into the same room and hash out the details.
Getting all those groups to agree on anything is a miracle. Each of those stakeholders has completely different priorities. The apartment associations are worried about liability and building damage. The unions are worried about safety and jurisdiction. The utilities are worried about grid management. And the solar advocates just want to get the product to market.
And the utility landscape in Colorado makes it even harder. You have investor-owned utilities like Xcel, but you also have municipal utilities and rural electric co-ops. A rule that works perfectly for Xcel might cause huge operational headaches for a small rural co-op.
The interviews noted that Xcel was generally more comfortable with the direction of the bill, but some of the municipal and rural utilities were much more cautious. The interviews noted that Xcel was generally more comfortable with the direction of the bill, but some of the municipal and rural utilities were much more cautious.
Senator Kipp described the core disagreement as a question of framing. The solar advocates were worried that the utilities just wanted veto power, that they wanted to be able to say no to any customer who wanted plug-in solar.
And the utilities?
The utilities said, no, we don't want a veto. We just want safety and operational certainty. We need to know what's plugging into our grid.
So how did they resolve it?
The final bill is a compromise. It protects the customer's fundamental right to use qualifying portable scale solar devices without needing prior approval. But it gives the utilities additional language and processes around safety, implementation, and meter callers.
Which brings us to the most technical, but arguably the most impactful part of the bill. Let's talk about meter callers. It's not as sexy as a balcony solar panel, but Representative Smith said this was one of the most important innovations in the entire bill.
A meter caller adapter is exactly what it sounds like. It's a device that gets installed right at your electric meter, between the meter socket on your house and the actual utility billing meter.
Why do we care about that?
Because it provides a much simpler, faster, and cheaper way to interconnect distributed energy resources. If you want to add a traditional solar system, or a home battery, or an EV charger, you often have to do a major electrical panel upgrade. That can cost thousands of dollars and take months of permitting. A meter collar bypasses a lot of that friction. It lets you tie those systems directly into the meter base.
Smith said the coalition knew they had to draw a line in the sand on certain provisions, and meter collars were one of them. They refused to drop it from the bill.
And they won. The enacted law requires the Colorado Public Utilities Commission to revise their interconnection rules by December 31, 2026, specifically to address meter collar adapters.
What do those rules have to cover?
They have to create public lists of approved adapters. They have to define the approval process for new adapters. They have to outline the customer request process, and they have to set rules for cost estimates and installation procedures, specifying that they have to be installed by qualified parties like registered electrical contractors.
And it doesn't just apply to Xcel. The law requires the co-ops and the municipal utilities to address meter collar processes too.
That is what makes Colorado's law so ambitious. They didn't just pass a narrow balcony solar bill. They passed a comprehensive distributed energy bill that tackles interconnection friction at multiple levels.
Senator Kipp used a really great phrase to describe plug-in solar. She called it a gateway.
I love that framing. COSA sees it the exact same way. A small plug-in solar device might be the very first clean energy product a household ever buys.
Right. You buy a 400-watt panel for your patio, you plug it in, you start watching the app to see how much power it generates. Suddenly, you're paying attention to your energy use. You start realizing how much power your fridge uses or your AC.
And then maybe next year, you look into a home battery or a smart thermostat or an EV. It brings people into the ecosystem. The policy significance isn't just the wattage of that one little panel. It's the behavior it unlocks. It creates a more engaged, educated consumer base.
Representative Smith put it in the context of Colorado's goal to reach 100% clean energy. She said plug-in solar is just one of many tools they need. They need rooftop solar, utility-scale solar, storage, meter collars, electrification, all of it. This bill is about creating a more flexible architecture for customer-owned energy.
And it's happening against the backdrop of rising electricity costs and massive new grid demands from data centers. Senator Kipp was careful to say that plug-in solar isn't going to solve the data center load problem, but it does give households a tool to reduce their own consumption and build resilience at the edge of the grid, while the state figures out the larger infrastructure issues.
So the law is passed. It goes into effect in August 2026. What still needs to happen?
The market has to catch up. We need compliant products that meet the UL standards and are sold through trusted retailers. The regulators have to finish the meter caller rules. Utilities and electricians need clear guidance on implementation. And HOAs and landlords need plain English rules on what they can and cannot restrict.
Senator Kipp heard estimates that product readiness might take 2 to 3 years, but she's hoping the standards move faster. If compliant products are ready in 6 to 12 months, Colorado wants to be ready to inform the public.
Representative Smith had a great closing message for Colorado residents. She said, Colorado has 300 days of sunshine, and plug-in solar gives more people a way to capture some of it.
Though, fun fact, we fact-checked that 300 days of sunshine claim. It's actually a famous Colorado myth dating back to the 1870s. The state climatologist says it's not quite that high, but hey, it's still a very sunny state.
The sentiment stands. But both Smith and Kipp were very clear. Don't just go buy the first unlisted product you see online today. Wait for the certified products. Understand the safety rules. Follow your building codes. And keep your expectations realistic.
All right, Mike, bring it home. What are the key takeaways from Colorado's HB 26-007?
3 things. First, Colorado went bigger and broader. By setting a 1,920-watt limit and including comprehensive meter collar provisions, Colorado built a framework that goes far beyond a simple permission bill. Second, access and affordability drove the politics. This bill passed because it offers renters, condo owners, and lower-income households a tangible, affordable way to participate in solar generation. And third, safety and stakeholder compromise were non-negotiable. The law protects consumer rights, but it explicitly requires adherence to fire codes, building codes, and reasonable HOA safety rules, particularly regarding wind and anti-islanding.
That's it for our deep dive into Colorado. It is amazing to see how quickly this policy conversation is evolving state by state.
If you want to read the full text of the Colorado bill or check the status of plug-in solar legislation in your state, head over to pluginsolarus.com and check out our state tracker.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Plug-in Solar Explained.
Plug-in Solar US is an educational resource. Rules, codes, utility requirements, and product certifications can change, so always check current local requirements and use properly certified products.